Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I am your host, Voodoo Pickles, and today I'm going to be talking about deep reading. So I've been online. I'm online, not a lot, but a pretty good amount. And going online, I've seen a lot of people talk about deep reading, the loss of attention spans, the way that people aren't actually reading anymore. There was this whole big thing with a bunch of people on TikTok that told everybody that they didn't actually read. They just either read the dialogue, or they would skim all of the books that they would read just so that they could hit an imaginary goal of reading a certain amount of books. And I was like, seeing a lot of videos on this. I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna throw my little 2 cents in there, and then also I'm going to be creating some videos to help you learn how to deep read. So I've been reading since I was about 5 years old. I was taught by my mother, and she was reading since she was about 5 years old. My son learned how to read when he was about 5 years old. It's just something we do. In my household, we enjoy reading. We have a vast library, and going to an actual library is like one of my favorite activities. Going to a bookstore is one of my favorite activities. There was a couple of years recently where work was getting in the way that I was not able to read as much as I would like to. And starting last year, I made a concerted effort to jump back in to reading and to enjoy the process of reading again. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, and there wasn't much to do. Like, there was the things we did for normal type of stuff. Like, I went fishing, I went hunting, I went outside hiking all the time, but I lived kind of in a desert, so it wasn't a lot to do a lot of the times. And when I learned how to read, reading became the thing I did. It became the thing I did. It helped me jumping into a book helped me explore other areas, other places. I loved reading about the ocean because I was in a desert, and thinking about the ocean and all of those type of adventures that would happen there would be something that was so foreign to me. It was fantastic. And as a kid, jumping into a book and being able to get lost in the story was super easy because I had nothing else to do. I was the middle child of a few siblings. I have 3 siblings, and then later on 4. So we had one TV in our house for the longest time. So there's nothing else for me to do. So I read. I read a lot. And that continued out throughout high school and when I left home and all of these type of things until, I became an adult and had adult things to do. Then my reading slowed down a lot. So what is deep reading? So a quote from Thoughtful Co. is, "Deep reading is the active process of thoughtful and deliberate reading carried out to enhance one's comprehension and enjoyment of a text." And it is also called slow reading. And it was coined by a term by Sven Birkerson. I don't know how to pronounce that as well. And from the Gutenberg Elegies in 1994, and pretty much is deep reading is the slow and meditative possession of a book. So that's how you define deep reading. It's the opposite of skimming. It's actually getting lost in a text and being able to consume everything that a book can give to you. And there's a lot of different benefits to deep reading. A few of the very big ones are you get an increased attention span, you have an improved memory, and especially if you're deep reading fiction, it increases your mental processes and being able to puzzle out things, as well as increase your empathy. And it also increases your comprehension. And it just allows your brain to work a lot better. There's been a lot of studies on what actually consuming a book could do for you. And none of it's bad. None of it is bad. Reading deeply is always something that is good for you and good for your brain, especially since humans don't naturally, reading texts are not very natural to humans, and so it's a learned process. And so I'm going to be taking you guys through how to deep read. And these are just something that I've noticed is not around. Maybe it is, I don't know. hopefully this helps you, because this also helped me a lot when I was getting back into reading last year. Because I did not, like I said, I had adult problems, adult issues. I had a family. I wasn't reading, and it was taking a lot of enjoyment out of my life, because I really enjoy reading. I enjoy stories. I really enjoy the consumption of stories. So reading allows me to have all of these stories again in a different form that allows me to engage my brain, because when my brain is engaged in something, I feel better. If it's not, I feel slow, I feel lethargic, I feel like I haven't done anything, I feel sometimes that I'm actively getting stupider. So I try to engage my brain as much as I can. And there's a big thing with a lot of people having problems being online a lot, being on social media and all these type of things. And when I'm actively reading or when I'm doing other things to engage my brain, I don't have a problem with social media. I don't sit there and scroll for hours or anything. I'll scroll for like a little bit, but most of the time I'm doing something else. So how do you start deep reading? First thing you need to do is, why do you want to read? Are you in school so you have to read? Do you have to complete a bunch of text within a certain span for your school? If that's the case, you might want to look at some videos on how to do that. I did not finish college. I had no problem reading in high school because there was nothing else for me to do. So I'm probably not the best person to talk for that. Hopefully anything that I'm saying could work towards that, but there's also better material out there for you to focus on how to read academically. But if you're like me and you just want to be engaged in the story and you want to remember it, that's one of the biggest things. Is I see a lot of people who, when I talk to about books and what I'm reading, I get really excited when I find out somebody's a reader. And I ask all the questions. What kind of books do you like to read? What was the latest book you read? What is something that you would recommend to me? And there's a lot of times where people are like, I don't remember what I read. It was a good book, but I don't remember who it was written by. I don't remember the story really. And it's kind of a ha-ha thing to where it's just like, when I'm done reading something, it's just gone forever. And I'm so crazy. I just can't seem to remember what I read. It's like, okay, I'm only like that when I'm reading something that I don't care about. Or when I'm like speed listening through an audiobook because I'm not really enjoying it and I'm hoping that it'll get better. But that's you have to kind of figure out why you want to read. And if it's just, I want to be able to read and enjoy a story and remember it, then yeah, definitely. And another thing is, you're not accountable to anybody for how much you read. Like, there's a lot of, every time I look up reading content, there's reading goals for the year. There's how to read 100 books in a year. And there's a lot of influencers who, like, I've read this much this year, and I think that's very detrimental to being able to deep read. Because if you're holding yourself up to somebody who especially does this for a living, like, one, there's a lot of them that are saying that they don't deep read, they skim, or they don't have the attention span to be able to read through text and visualize a scene in their mind, that they can only read dialogue, so they're missing most of the story. Or they don't have to do other things. A lot of full-time influencers, this is their job. They have all day to read. I don't know about you. I don't have all day to read. I have a full-time job and I have a family. I don't have all day to read. I have like 2 hours at most, or somewhere around there in my day, to sit down and read a book. So within those times, I want to deep read. I want to be able to remember what I read, mostly because I want to know the story. I spent money on these books most of the time, and because I only get this small amount to read a specific book, and I'm usually reading like 2 or 3 different books in different situations, if I'm not deep reading, I'm not going to remember what I read. I'm going to pick up this book and I'm like, oh, I'm halfway through. What happened? I don't know. And then I jump in. It's like watching a movie from halfway through. You're like, what happened in the first half? I don't really remember. So deep reading helps you remember all of these things. It helps you consume a story. It helps you get lost into the book. And when you get lost into a book, just like getting lost into any hobby or any type of art form, you feel it's really fulfilling. It's really, really fulfilling. So figure out why you want to read. And once you can kind of you just want to be like, I just want to finish a book and remember it. That is the simplest reason to start deep reading. And once you figure out why you want to read, the next thing to do is to kind of dictate your materials. Are you going to try and do the aesthetic annotating? Like you're going to have highlighters and you're going to have pens and book tabs and stuff. I don't annotate my fiction books. I annotate my nonfiction books mostly just because I want to remember certain information at a later point in time. But I don't really annotate my fiction books. I don't know if I'm going to keep a book long enough in my library that I'm like, oh, I don't want to ruin this for somebody else who's reading it. But you may feel different. And so if you decide you want to annotate, you have to figure out how you're going to annotate. There's also different videos on how you can start annotating. And when I'm reading, I use my notes. I have a binder here, a little A5 3-ring binder here that I keep notes in. And that's how I remember what I read outside of just kind of keeping it in my head, as well as writing down quotes or notes about what I read or anything like that. And so I just have a pen and paper here. And I'll stop reading every now and then and I'll put it into my notes. So you kind of have to decide on how you're going to do that. If you just want to read, to enjoy it, to consume it, to remember it, you won't really need any materials. You'll need a book and a bookmark. That's it. If you're reading electronically, you'll just need something to read electronically on, and that has digital bookmarks in it. So you kind of have to decide where you're going to go with that. Most of the time, you'll just start with a book and a bookmark and then decide on all the other things later. A second thing you need to do is choose your book. When you're starting off learning how to deep read, you don't want to pick something that is difficult to read. You don't need to pick up 1,000, 2,000 page book or like Dante's Inferno or any type of these classical type of thinky think books. Like they're not necessary. You need to start off with something that's easy to read. Something that you're pretty sure you will enjoy, or something that you've read before that you did enjoy. We're getting back into deep reading. We're getting back into comprehending what we're reading and enjoying it. That is the main part of deep reading. And so you just have to choose your first book. You can work your way up to reading some really difficult to read books, but you don't want to start off with them, just like anything else. You don't want to jump in the deep end when you're just learning how to swim. So pick an easy book. For these videos, I picked The Silent Woods. This is like a survival thriller type book, so it's pretty slow in the beginning and just like a thriller movie. It amps up and then it just goes. So by the time I get to the middle, the words are just flowing. I'm in that mind space of going to this, and my reading starts picking up a little bit, and that's just, I like thrillers. So it's very easy to read. It's not too many pages. The font is not too small. It's not tiny little words on a thing that I'll have to be like, oh, I don't know. So pick an easy and enjoyable book. Something you think if you want to read something comedic, if you want to read like a light horror book, a thriller, a mystery, just pick something that you think you will enjoy. It doesn't have to be super meaty. It doesn't have to, nobody's going to be judging you on this, or nobody should. If you want to read a TikTok romance, go for it. And the third thing you need to do is you need to create your environment. When you're starting off learning how to deep read, you need to cater your space towards it. Just like how there's doctors and researchers out there who say when you're learning how to set a sleep schedule or a sleep pattern type thing, you have to only use your bed for sleeping or laying down. You have to turn off the electronics at a certain time, and you have to create your environment. So that could be it could be reading on your bed, it could be reading on your couch or whatever, but just set the most consistent time that you could, like I said, I have a full-time job and I have a family. So when I read, it's mostly in the evenings going into the night. So that's the time where I sit on my couch and sometimes I'll have some background noise on. Other times I won't. And the TV's free for whoever wants it. And I'm just sitting there and I'm reading. That's my little bubble. I can ignore everything else out there. When you're first starting off deep reading, you don't want to have those distractions around. So if you can, get away from your electronics. I have most of my electronics turned off or away from me. I put them where I actually have to reach for my phone if I'm trying to read, because I mostly read physically. If I am reading digitally, I will read on my tablet and I will have it in either airplane mode or the Wi-Fi turned off. Like something to where notifications aren't showing up, or I turn all the notifications off. So when I'm in my Kindle app or my Libby app and it's full screen up there, I'm not even seeing the notification bar. So nothing's coming in to bug me. And you want to just create a nice comfy space that you can go to while you're starting to deep read, where you can just go into, you can have starting off like your 30 chunk minutes of time where it's relatively quiet, where you don't have distractions all over the place, and where you're just able to pick up your book and read. And you want to, the last thing you want to do is you want to start small. I'm going to have other videos linked in the description below on like good times to start, which would be the first one starts off as 10 minutes of reading and then 5 minutes of not reading, like a 5-minute break. And you don't want to have any background sound on. You don't want to have music or lo-fi or anything. You just want to start off just as quiet as you can get it, as calm as you can get it. No background sounds, no like snacks, nothing that can really distract you, at least for those 10 minutes of reading. And do that reading for 10 minutes, break for 5, reading for 10, break for 5. And just set enough time aside that you can do that. And then once you feel comfortable with reading more than 10 minutes, the second part is to go with around 15 minutes, I believe I put in there. It's 15 minutes of reading and then 5 minutes of a break. So instead of the 10, you start with 15, and this time you can, and no sound, have it as distraction free as possible, but you can introduce some snacks into it. Like I like having a snack when I'm reading as well as something to drink. Having something to drink around through all of it is totally fine, but this is where you like the first time where you want to keep away snacks because you can get distracted with it as well as muck up your books. The second time you're comfortable enough to where you're like, yes, I can stop every now and then and eat something. And then the third time, once you're comfortable with the 15 minutes, is 45 minutes of reading and then a 5-minute break. And that one you can have some background sounds on. Right now, when you can read for 45 minutes straight, you should be feeling very confident that you can block out distractions. So you can have some lo-fi music, you can have some background sounds on, you can have some snacks available to you, and it's not going to break you away from your reading experience. And that's kind of where you want to get to. At least have the 45 minutes of reading to a 5-minute break. After that, after you're comfortable with that, you can read for you should be able to read for almost any amount of time, and then you can still have your break at it. You can push it up to reading for an hour with a 5 or 10 minute break after that. After you get to the 45, you'll start learning where you feel comfortable. It could be in reading for an hour and then taking like a few minute break. It could be reading for 2 hours and then you're done for the night. Whatever is comfortable for you. After that, you'll be starting to learn, this is my comfort zone of reading, before I get too tired, before my eyes get strained, before my legs or my back or whatever start to hurt from sitting in one position for too long or sitting down for too long. Like after you get to that 45, you'll kind of know where you're at, and you shouldn't need the training wheels anymore. So that's what I'm going to do. If you look in the description below, I'll have links to all of the videos for starting off with the 10-minute, the 15-minute, and the 45-minute. But I just wanted to put this out there because I haven't seen a lot of people doing that. I see a lot of people talking about deep reading, and mostly it's people with a lot of degrees, and they're saying, well, when I was in doing my college work and my dissertations and my master's degree. I don't have any of that. I just enjoy reading. And I enjoy getting lost in a book. And if a book isn't getting me lost into it, it's either a problem with the story or it's a problem with me. Sometimes it's a problem with the story. It's not written in a way that I'm enjoying. Or the characters are not characters who I care about. So I'll put the book down. Remember, with the deep reading, nobody is judging you. This is just you and your brain with these stories here. So I hope this will be able to help people start to deep read. This is not a comprehensive thing. Like I said, I didn't go to school for any of this. I'm not that type of smart person to give you all of the research background thing. If you want to look into that, there are definitely people out there that can help you look into that, or you can go through academic resources and look for that. I just want you to be able to sit down with a book and enjoy it and get lost in the story. Stories are so amazing, and there are so many good books out there. There are so many of good things. It's like, I want to share my hobby with you guys. And I hope that this is a way for me to help you guys. If you guys want to start deep reading, and then I will also put a link to a playlist where I'm going to start putting my read and chills. These are me sitting here with the book, with some snacks, and we're just chilling with some lo-fi music. You just chill with me. Let's read together. I hope you guys have an amazing day, night, afternoon, whatever it is where you are. I hope you guys are able to read deeply and enjoy all of the stories that are happening around you. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye.